One of the best ways to get wealthy is to get your money to work for you. So, what's one of the easiest ways to get your money to start making you even more money? High yield savings accounts. In this video, I want to talk about what they are, how they work, and even give you some ideas of ones that you could check out on your own. So, let's get into it.
Money mantra.
So, what is a high yield savings account? High yield savings accounts are exactly like a typical savings account that you probably have and have had since you were a little kid, except for two big differences. The first is probably the most obvious, and that is that they offer a higher yield on your money. So looking at this example here of SoFi as of April 2023 is offering 4% interest on any cash that you deposit with them. Compare that to the typical savings account right now, which is probably offering between 0.03% and 0.05% depending on who you're banking with. Now, I do recognize that these interest rates can fluctuate depending on inflation and, of course, what the Federal Reserve is doing. But hey, 4% is a lot higher than 0.03 or 0.05%, and I'd take that any day. The second big difference is that high yield savings accounts are typically offered only through online banks. So there's no brick or mortar location that you can go to do your banking. And this is very typical because this is how these companies actually keep their overhead and costs down, and so they can actually offer you these higher yields. So how do high yield savings accounts actually work? Well, they work just like your normal savings account, except remember that everything is being done online. So once you've set your account up, which I'll show you how to do later on in this video, you're going to deposit money in there, and that money is going to start to earn interest daily. Then, monthly, you're going to get that interest payment paid out to you, and this is where the real magic actually starts to happen. Compound interest starts to set in, and you earn interest on your interest, which is pretty cool. It's definitely one of those slow and steady wins the race type of deals, but I gotta be honest, once you start to see the interest pile up and then the interest that you're earning on that interest, it does get pretty exciting. At this point, we've talked about what a high yield savings account is and how it works. So the next question that's probably popping into your head is a high yield savings account right for me? Should I open one? Well, one of the things I love about personal finance is that it is in fact personal, and so therefore I can't really answer that question for you. But what I can do is give you a little list that I've put together of things to think about when it comes to whether or not opening a high yield savings account is indeed right for you. Now, the first thing I would think about is what is the goal for your money? Is your money meant to be held for long term or short term? One of the pros of high yield savings accounts is that they are relatively liquid, meaning that you can get your hands on your money pretty quickly should something pop up. Some other investment types that you might use could lock your money up and require you to pay some sort of fee to get a hold of it, but not typically the case with a high yield savings account. The second thing I would think about is the yield or the APY or the annual percentage yield. Is it high enough to justify opening up another account? I know some people don't like to have multiple accounts going with all their money in all these different places. It's confusing, it's tedious, it's just not fun. Is that the right APY or yield to justify you opening up another account to place your money in? Again, going to depend on what your situation is. The next thing I would think about is balance limits. When you're choosing a high yield savings account, you need to pay attention to, are there any particular balance limits that they're going to want you to hold in order to earn that APY or that yield. Some balance limits are zero, some are up into the thousands. And so when you're choosing an account, if you decide to go that route, you really want to pay attention to what is the limit in order to actually earn the yield that you're looking for. And the fourth thing is to pay attention to transaction limits. Personally, I like to use Ally, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And one of the things that they have are transaction limits. So I can do 6 transactions in a month period between my bank account, my high yield savings account with them, and my current bank account that I have in my normal bank that I use. And this really, 6 is a lot. I don't need to use all of them. And then theoretically, I'm supposed to get charged some sort of fee if I go beyond that. And to be honest, that's never happened. And I also think they end up waiving it anyways. So you just want to pay attention to that when you're thinking about using a high yield savings account versus maybe your typical savings account that you already have your money in. Are you willing to kind of work around any potential transaction limits that could be involved in the account that you've chosen? Or is it not a big deal? The next thing is that remember it's online only. These are online bank accounts that you can't go walk into the store if there's a problem. You're dealing with online customer support, which can be a good or a bad thing. I've found historically I've had 2 high yield savings accounts that I've used in the past, and customer support's been great so far. I haven't really had any issues that I've had to deal with. But some people get uncomfortable with that idea that something's totally online. They really want something that they can walk into if they have to and deal with anything that might pop up. And the sixth thing I would think about is taxes. Because high yield savings accounts have a higher yield or APY, you're going to be making more money. And you know how they say it, more money, more problems. But really, because you're going to be making more money on interest, you're going to get a 1099 interest form that you're going to have to claim on your taxes. The government does consider this earned income that you're going to need to include. So if you don't really want to deal with another form when it comes to doing your taxes, and that's kind of a problem for you, then that's something you want to think about. But really, you're probably earning interest in your typical savings account anyways that you're also supposed to be reporting. So who knows if that's really going to be a deal breaker for you or not. And maybe you have somebody else do your taxes for you and it doesn't matter anyways. It's just going to be another form that you're going to hand off. But again, something to think about when you're trying to decide, hey, is a high yield savings account something that I need to have in my life for my money? Here's a list of some high yield savings accounts. So if you're at the point where you might want to start checking out some of these things, this is a good starting point for you. You'll notice that these are listed by APY, so it goes from highest down to lowest. But of course, remember that when you're choosing a bank to open up a high yield savings account in, that you're taking into consideration a lot of factors, not just this yield. Things that we just talked about, like balance transfers, are there limits on that? Is there a limit on how much money you have to have in the account in order to earn this type of yield? Customer service, how is that? Another big thing that we haven't talked about too is to make sure it's FDIC insured. You want to know that you have that peace of mind that your money is going to be accessible should something happen to the particular bank. If you're sitting here looking and going, wow, this is quite a list, you could always kind of pick through, and if you've ever heard of any of these, maybe start with those ones. But you don't have to use this list. There are so many high yield savings account options that it can be overwhelming, but you could simply do a nice quick Google search and get a list of your own if you want. But again, just a place to start and start checking out some of these things. But you really want to do your own research and check out all of their policies so that you know what you're getting into before you get to the point where you start putting personal information in and depositing money. So as promised, I wanted to show you what it looks like to open up one of these high yield savings accounts. I decided to show you with Ally. Ally is who I currently bank through for my high yield savings account. Of course, choose any account that fits your needs, but since I'm familiar with it, I thought this would be a good example to show you. I also wanted to show you one of the cool features that Ally provides, which I just think is so neat and one of the reasons I chose them. But they have this thing called buckets, and so what buckets are these little kind of places that you can put your money inside of your savings account. So basically you would take any money that you're going to deposit into your account anyways as normal, and it will go into what's called your core savings, and then you can take that money and distribute it out amongst your buckets wherever you see fit. What I love about it is the fact that I can spread my money out for certain goals, but have it all still be in one same account, which I think is just absolutely cool. So one of the buckets that I have is my oil. So of course oil pops up every once in a while depending on how when we need to replace that. And so what I do is I pay that monthly so that I have that money built up and ready to go for when that does happen. And so I just deposit that money into my account and then I slide it over to my oil bucket. And so you can actually name the buckets anything that you want. I think I have about 8 buckets going right now currently, but I just really love that option and that I can very clearly see when I sign into my account how much money I have designated to oil. But yeah, just a really cool feature, and there might be other accounts that offer something very similar to this, but something that I definitely know Ally does. So if you're going to try to open an account, particularly through Ally, but I'm assuming this would be much similar to in other accounts, but you're going to click on this checking and savings bar here, and there will be an option for savings here. I'm already clicked ahead one tab, so you're not seeing it right now. And then In that tab, it's going to have you start putting in some information that is unique to you. So first question, hey, is this going to be an individual or a joint account? So you can have your significant other put onto the account with you if you would like to, or you can obviously open it on your own. Ally and a lot of these banks offer obviously multiple different types of accounts that exist. So make sure you're choosing online savings if that's what you're looking for. If you're also in the market for one of these other types of accounts, then by all means jump into those. Then it's going to show you what the interest rate would be given different dollar amounts. And as you can see, it doesn't matter how much you deposit in here, they're giving the same rate. And you might notice too that this is a little bit lower than some of those other options that I just showed you. Again, take into consideration all the factors about a particular bank that you want to open your account in. It's not all about chasing the yield. Higher yields are better, of course, but you also want to make sure that you're satisfied with where you're putting your money and that you feel comfortable with it being there. And then you would just simply create the account once you've put personal information in. And it's just pretty neat, pretty easy to do. And then you're all set and ready to go. Alright, the last thing I wanted to do in this video was to show you the money, if you will. What I've done is I've opened up my favorite APY calculator, and I'll put a link to this in the description below. But I want to plug in 3 different values to really show you how these different APYs, these larger APYs that you can get in these high yield savings accounts can really add up. So to start off with, let's put in $500. And as you can see, with a 4.75 APY, you're looking at making $1.94 a month. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but keep in mind this is a savings account, so hopefully you are putting more money in each month, and so this value right here would get larger. But also remember that you'll start the next month making interest off this value, and that'll keep adding up and up and up. So that was $500. Let's look at $1,000. $1,000, if you had that in your savings account at a 4.75% interest rate, would give you $387 a month. And again, hopefully you're depositing more money in here, and then of course you're going to start to earn this interest on that amount as well as your original $1,000. And then for fun, let's put $10,000 in. Maybe you have a nice big nest egg, or remember, maybe you're going to start using your savings account to store money that you're going to use to pay bills that pop up occasionally during the year. And so a lot of this money can sit there, and even though it's not part of necessarily your emergency fund, it is money that can sit there and actually build some interest until you need to use it to pay for something. And if you take a peek at this, if you've got $10,000 in your high yield savings account at a 4.75% APY, you can see here that you would stand to make $38.75 monthly, which is pretty good. And again, even without putting any more money into this, you would then start to earn interest on this whole entire amount, not just your original $10,000, and it really, really can add up. I think it's important to remind everybody that building wealth is really a long game. It's not a get-rich-quick thing that happens overnight. Hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. Just remember, high yield savings accounts are a great way to preserve your capital from the volatilities of the stock market while still getting your hands on some juicy yield. Like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and see you in the next one.